They say every family has traditions, and ours is no different. Out here, deep in the woods, traditions are all we have. No TV, no internet, except for when the weather's kind enough to let me borrow a weak signal. No neighbours either, not for miles. It's just the trees, the house and us. And once a year, the hunt. Dad says the hunt is older than all of us, older than this house, maybe even older than the trees themselves. He likes to talk about it like it's sacred, something passed down from the first of our bloodline. It's what keeps us strong, he says every year, his voice low and serious. It's what keeps us together. I've never known anything else. Every November, as the air turns sharp and cold, the excitement builds. Mum starts prepping the house, making it spotless like we're about to host a king. My brothers sharpen their knives, check the traps, and scout the woods for days. My sister Lena whispers prayers by the fire at night, her face lit soft and strange by the flickering flames. And me? I've always been the watcher, the helper. I'm too young, Dad says, though I'm 16 now. Next year, he promised last time. He always says that, and I've started to wonder if he means it. Maybe he thinks I'm not ready, or maybe he sees what I see when I look in the mirror, that I'm not like the others. But this year feels different. When Dad gathered us in the living room last night, the fire crackling loud in the silence, he looked at me longer than usual. His pale eyes were sharp as the hunting knife at his belt. This year, he said, his voice heavy with meaning, we'll need all hands. Even yours, Lily. I felt my chest tighten, my stomach twist. I wanted to cheer, to smile like the others, but all I could do was nod. Now, as I sit here at my little desk, the sun just barely starting to peek through the trees, I can hear the house waking up. Dad's boots stomp across the floorboards, and the door creaks as he steps out to check the traps. Mom's voice floats up from the kitchen, low and busy. My brothers are laughing about something outside, their voices muffled by the frost-touched window. The air smells sharp and cold, and underneath it, faintly, I can catch the scent of smoke from the fire Lena's stoking in the hearth. It's the kind of morning that feels alive, humming with a strange energy. It's the morning of the hunt. I've always loved the way this day feels, even if I've never truly been part of it. There's something about the way my family comes together, the way they move with purpose, that makes me proud to be one of them. This year, though, I feel something else. It's small, a little itch at the back of my mind that I can't quite scratch. I tell myself it's nerves about finally joining them, about proving I'm not just the odd one out. But as the morning stretches on and the house buzzes with activity, I can't shake the feeling that this year will be different, that this year something will change. For better or worse, I'm finally part of the tradition, and I'm not sure I'm ready. The morning of the hunt always starts with a meeting around the kitchen table. It's the only time of year we all sit down together like this, and for once, no one argues. Even my brothers, Liam and Samuel, manage to keep their teasing to a minimum. Dad sits at the head of the table, his presence heavy and commanding, like the tall oak that grows just outside the house. He's the kind of man you don't talk back to, not because he yells or threatens, but because his silence is worse. One look from him can make the words shrivel up in your throat. Mum's at his side, pouring black coffee into his tin cup. She's quiet as always, her face pale and drawn. She's never been the type to smile much, but during the hunt, she seems even colder. Her hands shake slightly when she sets the coffee pot down, and I wonder if anyone else notices. Liam and Samuel sit on either side of me, practically buzzing with excitement. Liam, the oldest, has a confidence that makes everything he does seem effortless. He's the best shot in the family, and he never lets anyone forget it. Samuel's only a year younger, but twice as loud, always cracking jokes and jabbing his elbow into my side when he thinks no one's looking. And then there's Lena, my sister. She's older than me by 3 years, and quieter than even Mum. There's something about her that feels otherworldly, like she doesn't quite belong here, but wouldn't belong anywhere else either. She's beautiful in a way that makes people uneasy, tall and pale, with sharp green eyes that seem to see too much. She doesn't talk much, but when she does, her voice is soft and strange, like the wind through the trees. Then there's me, Lily, the youngest, the watcher. I've never felt like I quite fit in. even here where no one else would fit at all. My brothers call me Mouse because I'm small and quiet, but I know it's not just that. I know they see it. The thing that makes me different. Sometimes I see it too, in the mirror. My reflection is never quite right. My skin is pale enough to see the veins beneath it, and my eyes are set a little too far apart. I try not to look too long. It makes my stomach twist. "Lily," Dad says, snapping me out of my thoughts. His voice is calm, but it carries weight. "Yes, sir," I reply automatically. "You'll be with Lena this year. Watch and learn. Next year you'll take your own position." Lena doesn't react, just stirs her tea with a slow, deliberate motion. My brothers glance at each other, smirking. I know what they're thinking. Little Mouse out in the woods? She'll never make it. I swallow hard and nod. "I'll do my best." Dad nods back, satisfied, and turns his attention to the rest of the family. The conversation shifts to strategy. Liam talks about the traps he set yesterday, describing their placement in detail. Samuel interrupts with his usual bluster, bragging about how he'll make the first kill. Mum listens silently, her hands clasped in her lap, while Dad nods along, his expression unreadable. As they talk, I study their faces. Liam's sharp and confident, Samuel's broad and eager, Lena's calm and distant. And then there's Dad, his face carved from stone, and Mum, who looks like she's holding her breath. I wonder if they see what I see, the cracks beneath the surface. The hunt is supposed to bring us together, but there's always a tension in the air, a heaviness that no one acknowledges. Maybe it's just nerves, or maybe it's something deeper, something none of us can say out loud. "Everyone clear?" Dad's voice cuts through the room and the conversation stops. We all nod, even me. "Good," he says, standing up. "Then let's get to it." The room bursts into motion. Chairs scrape against the floor, boots stomp toward the door, and I feel my heart race as I grab my coat. Lena pauses beside me, her green eyes unreadable. "Stay close," she says, her voice soft but firm. I nod, but she's already gone, her long strides carrying her toward the door. For a moment I stand there, feeling small and out of place in the chaos. Then I follow, stepping into the cold, sharp air of the morning. The hunt has begun. The woods feel different on the morning of the hunt. The air is sharper, and the usual sounds, the rustling of squirrels, the chirping of birds, are muted, as if the forest knows what's coming. I wrap my coat tighter around me and follow Lena down the narrow trail, her long strides making me jog to keep up. "You don't have to walk so fast," I mumble, half hoping she doesn't hear me. She glances over her shoulder, her green eyes piercing. "You'll need to keep up, Lily. The woods don't wait for anyone." I bite back a retort and focus on matching her pace. The trees press in around us, their bare branches casting long shadows on the frost-covered ground. I've walked this trail 100 times, but today it feels unfamiliar, like it's watching me. By the time we reach the clearing, my legs ache and my breath comes in small, sharp puffs. The rest of the family is already there, busy with their tasks. Dad is checking one of the larger traps, a steel contraption with jagged teeth that looks like it could snap a deer in two. Liam and Samuel are setting up snares, their movements practiced and efficient. "Stay here," Lena says, her voice soft but commanding. She strides over to join Dad, leaving me standing awkwardly on the edge of the clearing. I watch them work, trying to soak it all in. Every movement has purpose. Liam adjusts the tension on a snare, his fingers nimble despite the cold. Samuel kneels by a tree, spreading something thick and dark onto the bark. Bait, I assume, though I can't tell what it is from here. Dad straightens up and gestures for Lena to follow him deeper into the woods. They disappear into the trees without a word, leaving me alone with my brothers. Samuel notices me watching and grins. "Enjoying the show, Mouse?" "Shut up," I mutter, kicking at the frost-covered ground. He laughs and tosses me a coil of rope. "Make yourself useful then. Go string this up between those trees over there." I catch the rope, its rough fibers scratching my hands, and trudge toward the spot he pointed out. The trees are close together, their bare branches tangled like skeletal fingers. I loop the rope around the first tree, pulling it tight before tying it off. As I work, I notice something strange. There's a mark carved into the bark of the second tree, a deep, jagged line that looks almost like a symbol. It's not like anything I've seen before, sharp and deliberate with an air of menace. Samuel, I call, my voice uncertain. He glances up from his trap, eyebrows raised. What? There's something carved into this tree. He walks over, his boots crunching on the frosty ground. When he sees the mark, his grin fades, and for a moment he looks almost nervous. Don't worry about it, he says quickly, his tone dismissive. Just tie the rope and move on. But what is it? He shrugs, but his eyes flick toward the woods, as if expecting something to emerge from the shadows. Probably just some dumb kids messing around, not our problem. I nod slowly and finish tying the rope, but the unease lingers. By the time the traps are set, the sky has turned a pale grey, and the air feels heavier. Dad and Lena return from their scouting, their faces unreadable. Everything ready? Dad asks, his voice low and calm. Ready? Liam replies, his grin sharp. Samuel gives a thumbs up and Lena nods silently. Dad turns to me, his pale eyes narrowing. Lily? I hesitate, clutching the rope in my hands. The memory of the carved symbol flashes in my mind, but I push it aside. Ready? I say, trying to keep my voice steady. Good, Dad says, his lips curling into a faint smile. Then we wait. We settle into our positions around the clearing, the traps hidden, the bait set. The forest grows quieter, the tension thick enough to choke on. I sit beside Lena, who keeps her eyes fixed on the trees ahead. What are we waiting for? I whisper. Her gaze doesn't waver. You'll see. The hours stretch on and the cold seeps into my bones. I pull my coat tighter and try to ignore the uneasy feeling twisting in my gut. Somewhere in the distance, a branch snaps. Lena stiffens beside me, her green eyes narrowing. It's starting, she murmurs. I peer into the shadows, my heart racing. Whatever we're hunting, it's close. The snap of the branch echoes through the clearing, sharp and sudden like the crack of a whip. Everyone freezes. Even Samuel, who can never sit still, goes quiet, his grin fading into something more serious. Dad raises his hand, a signal we've all learned to obey without question. Stillness. Silence. I hold my breath, my ears straining for any sound beyond the rustle of wind through the trees. A second snap follows, quieter this time, as if whatever made it is trying to be careful now. My pulse quickens and I feel Lena's hand brush against mine. Stay still, she whispers, her voice barely audible. I nod, but I can't stop the tremor in my fingers. The woods feel alive, humming with an energy that prickles at the back of my neck. Shadows shift between the trees, and for a moment I swear I see movement, a flash of something pale against the darkness. Dad stands, his movement slow and deliberate. His hunting rifle is slung across his back, but he doesn't reach for it yet. Instead, he takes a step forward, his boots crunching softly on the frozen ground. It's close, he says, his voice low and steady. Liam and Samuel move into position, their knives gleaming faintly in the dim light. They're good at this, quick, quiet, efficient. I've watched them hunt before, but never like this. There's a weight to their movements, a sense of purpose that feels almost ritualistic. Lena nudges me gently. Come on, she whispers, standing. I follow her as she slips around the edge of the clearing, her steps so quiet they barely disturb the frost. She leads me to a cluster of trees where we can see without being seen, crouching low behind a thick trunk. Watch carefully, she murmurs, her eyes scanning the shadows. I don't have time to ask what I'm watching for. The sound comes again, louder now, a rustling, followed by the unmistakable crunch of footsteps. Whatever it is, it's moving toward us. I grip the bark of the tree in front of me, my nails digging into the rough surface. My heart pounds so loudly I'm sure whatever's out there can hear it. Then I see it. A figure steps into the clearing, hesitant and slow. At first it's hard to make out in the dim light, but as it moves closer, details come into focus. It's a man, dressed in a heavy coat and carrying a small backpack. He looks normal enough, tall, middle-aged, with a scruffy beard and a cautious expression. But there's something off about him, something I can't quite place. He stops in the center of the clearing, turning in a slow circle, as if sensing the traps hidden just beneath the leaves. His breath fogs in the cold air, and I can see his hands trembling slightly as he adjusts the strap of his backpack. "Help!" he calls out, his voice shaky. "Is anyone there?" My stomach twists. This isn't what I expected. Dad steps forward, his face calm but unreadable. The man turns toward him, relief flashing across his face. "Oh, thank God," the man says, taking a step closer. "I got lost. Been wandering for hours." My phone's dead and I... The snap of a trap cuts him off. The man cries out as his foot is caught, the steel teeth clamping down with a sickening crunch. He falls to the ground, clutching his leg and screaming. I slap my hand over my mouth to stifle a gasp, my heart hammering in my chest. Liam and Samuel move quickly, emerging from the shadows like wolves closing in on prey. Samuel grabs the man's arms, pinning him down, while Liam kneels by the trap, inspecting the damage. "Please!" the man begs, his voice ragged. "I don't know what this is. Please!" Dad approaches slowly, his expression as calm and steady as ever. He crouches beside the man, his eyes cold and calculating. "You wandered too far," Dad says, his tone almost sympathetic. "I didn't mean to," the man sobs. "I swear I didn't mean to." Dad straightens, gesturing to Liam and Samuel. "Take him to the shed." The shed. My blood runs cold. Lena's hand grips my arm, steadying me. "Don't look," she whispers. But I can't tear my eyes away as Liam and Samuel drag the man toward the edge of the clearing. His screams echo through the forest, growing fainter with each step. And then silence. I turn to Lena, my voice trembling. What are we doing?" She looks at me, her green eyes calm and unyielding. "What we've always done." Before I can ask what that means, Dad's voice cuts through the silence. "Lily," he says, his tone firm, "you did well to watch." I nod, but my hands are shaking. The hunt has only just begun. Lena stays by my side as the clearing empties, her hand a steady weight on my shoulder. Dad, Liam, and Samuel disappear into the woods, dragging the man with them. The forest swallows their shapes and muffles their voices, leaving behind a silence so deep it feels unnatural. My legs feel weak, and I sink to the ground without meaning to. My breaths come in shallow gasps, and I try to steady them, but the image of the man, the look of sheer terror in his eyes, won't leave my mind. "Breathe," Lena says softly, crouching beside me. Her green eyes meet mine, unblinking. "You'll get used to it." "Used to it?" My voice cracks. She nods, her face calm in a way that feels wrong. "You have to. This is how it works." "How what works?" I hiss, my voice trembling. "What are we even doing? That man, he's just... Quiet," Lena cuts in, her tone sharper now. She glances toward the trees, her gaze darting between the shadows, as if checking for unseen watchers. When she's satisfied no one is near, she leans closer. "You can't talk like that, Lily. Not here. Not where they can hear you." "They," I whisper, clutching her arm. She doesn't answer right away. Instead, she straightens and pulls me to my feet. "Come on, we need to set up our watch." I follow her, my mind racing with questions. We move to a spot deeper in the woods, where the undergrowth grows thicker and the shadows seem darker. Lena chooses a tree with low, sturdy branches and gestures for me to climb. "We'll see better from up there," she says. I hesitate, staring at the gnarled bark. My hands are still trembling, but I nod and start climbing. The cold bites at my fingers, but I keep going until I reach a branch wide enough to sit on. Lena follows, settling beside me with the ease of someone who's done this 100 times. We sit in silence for a while, the forest stretching out below us in a tangled maze of branches and shadows. "I don't understand," I finally say, my voice barely more than a whisper. Lena sighs, resting her head against the tree trunk. "I know." "Then tell me." She looks at me, her sharp features softened by the pale light filtering through the trees. "There are rules, Lily. Rules we have to follow. The hunt is part of that." "But why? What's the point of this?" My voice rises and she shushes me quickly, her eyes darting toward the ground. After a tense moment, she speaks again, her voice low and measured. "It's tradition. Dad says it goes back generations. We don't question it, we just do it." I shake my head. "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer you're going to get," she snaps, then softens. "Look, I don't like it either, but this is our family. This is how we survive." "Survive?" The word feels foreign in my mouth. "Survive what?" Lena doesn't answer. Instead, she looks out into the woods, her gaze distant. "You'll see." I'm about to press her further when a sound cuts through the stillness, a low, guttural growl. My heart skips a beat, and I clutch the branch beneath me. "What was that?" Lena doesn't move, her eyes fixed on the shadows below. "Stay quiet," she whispers. The growl comes again, closer this time. It doesn't sound like any animal I've ever heard. Deep and resonant, like the earth itself is rumbling. Lena's hand tightens on my arm, her nails digging into my skin. "It's not for us," she says, barely audible. "Not for us," I whisper back. She doesn't reply. The growl fades and the forest goes still again, but the unease lingers, curling around my chest like a cold hand. I glance at Lena, her face pale and tense. For the first time, she looks afraid. "Lena," I say softly, my voice trembling, "what's out there?" She turns to me, her green eyes shadowed with something I can't quite name. "Not everything in these woods hunts for food," she says. Before I can ask what she means, a distant scream tears through the trees. The man. Lena closes her eyes, her jaw tight. "It's almost over," she whispers. But for the first time, I wonder who or what our family is really hunting. And worse, what else might be hunting us? The scream cuts off abruptly, leaving a silence so profound it presses against my ears. For a moment, neither of us moves. Lena's face is pale, her jaw tight as she grips the branch beneath her. What happened to him?" I whisper, though I already know the answer. She doesn't reply, her gaze fixed on the dark woods below. The quiet stretches on, broken only by the distant rustle of branches. Then faintly there's the sound of footsteps crunching through the frost. "Stay still," Lena mutters, her voice barely audible. I nod, clinging to the branch like it's the only thing keeping me alive. The footsteps grow louder, and soon I see them. Dad, Liam and Samuel emerging from the shadows, their forms dark silhouettes against the pale light filtering through the trees. Between them they carry something heavy, wrapped in a tattered blanket. Bloodstains seep through the fabric, stark and red against the grey. I feel bile rise in my throat and force myself to swallow it. My hands are shaking, but I can't tear my eyes away. "Let's go," Lena says suddenly, her voice sharp. She climbs down from the tree, her movements quick and practiced, and I follow, my legs trembling as they touch the ground. Lena grabs my arm and pulls me into the shadows, keeping us hidden as the others pass by. I catch a glimpse of Dad's face as they walk past, his expression calm and impassive. Samuel is grinning, his teeth gleaming in the faint light. Liam doesn't look at either of them. His gaze is fixed on the path ahead, his jaw clenched. They don't speak, and the weight they carry swings slightly with each step. Lena waits until they're gone before pulling me out of the shadows. "We have to help clean up," she says, her voice flat. I shake my head, panic rising in my chest. I can't do this, Lena." "You don't have a choice," she snaps, her green eyes flashing. "We all have to pull our weight, Lily. You think I wanted to do this the first time? You think any of us did?" I look at her, my vision blurring with tears. "But it's wrong. You know it's wrong." She hesitates, her lips pressing into a thin line. "It doesn't matter," she says finally. "We do what we have to." She grabs my hand and pulls me along, her grip firm and unyielding. We follow the trail the others took. The bloodstains on the snow a gruesome marker. The path leads to the shed, a squat, weathered building that smells of rust and rot. The door creaks open, and I feel a wave of nausea hit me as the metallic tang of blood fills my nose. Inside, the man's body lies sprawled on the floor, the blanket discarded to reveal his pale, lifeless form. His eyes are open, staring at nothing. Dad stands over him, sharpening a long knife with slow, deliberate strokes. Liam and Samuel are already at work, laying out tools and buckets. Lena nudges me forward. "Go help Samuel," she whispers. I stumble toward him, my heart pounding so hard I'm sure they can all hear it. Samuel hands me a rag and a bucket of water, his grin as sharp as the knife in his hand. "Don't look so scared, Mouse," he says, laughing. "It's just meat." Meat. The word sends a chill through me, but I force myself to take the rag and start scrubbing the floor where the blood has pooled. My hands tremble as I work, and I can feel Samuel watching me, his eyes glinting with amusement. "Enough," Dad says, his voice cutting through the room like a blade. Samuel's grin fades and he turns back to his work. I keep my eyes on the floor, scrubbing furiously to avoid looking at the body. My stomach churns, but I don't stop. By the time we're finished, my arms ache and my clothes are stained with blood. Dad stands in the center of the room, surveying our work with a satisfied expression. "Good," he says. "Go clean up. We'll start preparing the feast tomorrow." The feast. The word hangs heavy in the air as I follow Lena out of the shed. my legs weak and unsteady. As we walk back to the house, I can't stop thinking about the man's face, the way his eyes look so human, so alive, even in death. Lena doesn't speak until we're inside, the warmth of the fire doing little to chase away the cold in my bones. "You'll get used to it," she says again, her voice softer this time. I shake my head, my hands still trembling. I don't want to. She looks at me, her green eyes filled with something I can't quite name. Pity, maybe, or regret. "You don't have a choice," she says. None of us do. I crawl into bed that night, my stomach twisting with hunger and nausea. The house is quiet, but the sounds of the hunt linger in my mind, screams, growls, and the heavy thud of footsteps on frozen ground. I don't know how I'll make it through tomorrow, but I do know one thing. This isn't just about survival, it's about something darker, something ancient, and I'm afraid I'm starting to understand what it is. Morning comes too soon, dragging me out of restless sleep. The house is alive with movement. Heavy boots thud across the wooden floors, the kitchen filled with the clatter of pots and knives. The smell of smoke and roasting meat wafts through the air, making my stomach churn. I dress quickly, the chill of the floorboards biting at my bare feet. Downstairs, the dining table has been pulled into the center of the room, draped in a stained tablecloth that we only bring out for this occasion. It doesn't look festive, it looks like an altar. Liam is in the corner, sharpening a set of carving knives with slow, meticulous care. His shoulders are tense, his head bowed like he's in prayer. Samuel, on the other hand, is all energy. He hums a tuneless song as he stirs something in a pot, the air thick with the scent of herbs and fat. "Morning, Mouse," he says cheerfully, glancing over his shoulder. "Ready to earn your keep?" I don't respond. I can't. My mouth feels dry and the words won't come. Dad strides into the room, his presence commanding silence. He's holding a burlap sack that he tosses onto the table with a heavy thud. Something inside rattles and my stomach twists as I realize what it is. Bones. "Lily," Dad says, his voice sharp. "Come here." I hesitate, my feet rooted to the floor, but Lena nudges me forward, her expression unreadable. "Help Samuel with the stew," Dad instructs. "You'll learn to do your part starting now." Samuel grins and hands me a wooden spoon. "It's easy," he says, his voice dripping with mock encouragement. "Just stir, Mouse. I'll tell you when to add the spices." The pot bubbles ominously, its contents a murky red. My hands tremble as I take the spoon, the heat from the pot warming my cold fingers. "What's in it?" I ask, my voice barely above a whisper. Samuel's grin widens. "Family secret." I stir the pot, my movements mechanical. The smell is overwhelming, rich and metallic. I focus on the rhythm of the spoon scraping the bottom, trying to block out the world around me. But then Samuel leans in close, his breath hot against my ear. "Funny, isn't it?" he murmurs. "How they scream the same way the deer do." I freeze, the spoon clattering against the edge of the pot. My stomach lurches and I back away, nearly knocking into Lena, who's standing behind me. "That's enough, Samuel," she snaps, her voice cold. "You're not helping." Samuel shrugs, his grin never fading, just breaking her in. Lena grabs my arm and pulls me away from the pot, her grip firm. "Come with me," she says. I follow her out of the kitchen, my heart racing. She doesn't stop until we're outside, the cold air biting at my skin. "You need to keep it together," she says, her voice low and urgent. "If Dad thinks you're too weak—" "I'm not weak," I snap, surprising even myself. Lena raises an eyebrow but doesn't argue. Instead, she looks toward the woods, her expression softening. "I know this is hard," she says, "but it's our way. It's how we've always survived." I shake my head, the tears threatening to spill over. Why can't we just be normal? Why does it have to be this? Lena doesn't answer right away. She wraps her arms around herself, her gaze distant. "It's not about what we want," she says finally. "It's about what we owe." "Oh?" I echo, my voice trembling. She glances at me, her expression unreadable. "Dad says the hunt keeps us safe, that it keeps them away." "Who?" I press, desperation creeping into my voice. Lena doesn't respond. She just shakes her head and heads back toward the house. I stay outside for a while, the cold seeping into my bones. The woods stretch out before me, dark and endless. And for the first time, I feel like they're watching me. The ground beneath my feet feels unsteady, like it could give way at any moment. When I finally go back inside, the table is set. the knives gleaming in the firelight. Dad looks up as I enter, his expression stern. "Go wash up," he says. "It's almost time." Almost time. The words echo in my head as I climb the stairs, my legs heavy. In the bathroom, I stare at my reflection in the cracked mirror. My face is pale, my eyes wide and haunted. For a moment, I don't recognize myself. As I wash the blood from my hands, I can't shake the feeling that no amount of scrubbing will make them clean. Downstairs, I hear Samuel laughing, his voice sharp and grating. I think about what Lena said, what we owe, and I wonder if the hunt is really keeping us safe, or if it's binding us to something far worse. The table is set when I come downstairs, the firelight casting flickering shadows across the room. The air is thick with the smell of roasting meat and spices, so heavy it clings to the back of my throat. My stomach churns as I take my seat, my hands gripping the edge of the table. The centerpiece of the feast is laid out in front of us, steaming and glistening under the warm light. Dad sits at the head of the table, his knife already in hand, its polished blade catching the glow of the fire. Mum sits beside him, her face pale and tired but composed. Liam and Samuel are on either side, their eyes gleaming with anticipation. Lena sits next to me, her hands folded in her lap, her face calm but distant. "Before we begin," Dad says, his voice low and steady, "we give thanks." He bows his head, and the rest of us follow. We give thanks for the hunt, for the strength it provides, and for the bonds it forges. We honor the old ways and the sacrifice that sustains us. Let us never forget what we owe. The words roll off his tongue like scripture, practiced and final. I've heard them every year, but this time they feel heavier, laden with a meaning I can't quite grasp. "Amen," Dad says, and the rest of the family echoes it softly. He raises the knife, carving the meat with precision, each slice falling perfectly onto the platter. Liam and Samuel are the first to take their portions, their plates piled high. Lena takes a small piece, her movements careful and restrained. When the platter reaches me, my hands hesitate over the serving fork. "Go on, Lily," Dad says, his eyes boring into mine. "You earned your place at this table." His words send a chill down my spine, but I force a small smile and take a slice of meat. It's heavier than I expect, the juices pooling on my plate in a way that makes my stomach turn. I set the fork down, my appetite gone, but I know better than to refuse. "Eat," Dad says, his tone firm. The rest of the family is already digging in, the sounds of knives scraping against plates and soft murmurs of approval filling the room. I lift the fork to my mouth, the smell overwhelming. My hands shake as I take a small bite. The taste is strange. It's rich, with an almost metallic tang that coats my tongue. My throat tightens as I swallow, and I have to fight the urge to spit it out. Samuel grins at me from across the table, his mouth full. "Good, isn't it?" he says, his voice muffled. I nod weakly, not trusting myself to speak. The meal continues in a haze, the room growing warmer as the fire crackles. I barely touch my plate, my stomach twisting with every bite the others take. At one point, I glance toward Lena. She's eating slowly, her eyes fixed on her plate. When she notices me looking, she gives a small shake of her head, a silent warning not to ask. The conversation turns lively as the plates empty. Liam boasts about his traps, describing the moment they caught the man in vivid detail. Samuel laughs, adding his own exaggerated commentary. Dad listens, his face unreadable, but there's a glint of pride in his eyes. Mum doesn't say a word. She sits quietly, her hands folded in her lap, her plate untouched. When the meal is over, Dad leans back in his chair, his knife resting on the table. "Well done," he says, his voice carrying a note of finality. "This year's hunt was a success. We are strong and we are united." He looks at me, his pale eyes narrowing. "And Lily, you did well. You're one of us now." The words feel like a sentence, not a blessing. Lena clears her throat, drawing Dad's attention. "I'll help Lily clean up," she says, her voice steady. Dad nods, dismissing us with a wave of his hand. I follow Lena into the kitchen, the sounds of the others laughing and talking fading behind us. She doesn't speak until we're alone, the door closed. "You didn't eat much," she says, her voice quiet. I shake my head, my stomach churning. "Good," she says. You shouldn't. I look at her, my heart pounding. What is this, Lena? What are we doing? She sighs, leaning against the counter. It's what we've always done. It's what we have to do. But why? I press. Why can't we just be normal? Lena looks away, her jaw tightening. Because normal doesn't keep them away. Them? Her eyes meet mine, filled with something dark and distant. There are things in these woods, Lily. Things you don't understand. The hunt, it's a trade. We give them what they want, and in return, they leave us alone. I feel the blood drain from my face. You're saying this is for them? The man? The feast? It's all for them? She nods slowly. But what if we stopped? I whisper. What if we didn't do it? Lena's expression hardens. Then they'd come for us. Her words hang in the air, heavy and cold. I sink into a chair, my legs weak. The feast was supposed to bring us together, to make me feel like part of the family. Instead, it's made me realize just how far I'll have to go to escape it. The house feels different now, quieter somehow, like the walls are pressing in on me. The echoes of the feast linger in the air, heavy with the smell of meat and the faint tang of something I can't quite place. It clings to my skin, my hair, my clothes. I scrub my hands under the cold water, trying to rid myself of it, but I can still taste it at the back of my throat. Lena has been distant all evening, her silence more oppressive than the weight of the air around us. She hasn't even looked at me since we cleaned up together. Dad and the others are all gathered in the living room, talking in low voices. The fire crackles in the hearth, casting long shadows that dance across the room. I slip into my room, hoping to escape the oppressive atmosphere of the house, but even here it's impossible to forget what happened. My bed feels too soft, the sheets too warm. It's all wrong. The window is cracked open slightly, letting in the cool night air. I lean my forehead against the glass, trying to clear my mind, but the sounds of the woods outside seem to be closing in. The wind rustles the branches of the trees, and I imagine something lurking in the shadows, watching. I can't shake the feeling that they're out there, that something is waiting. I wonder if Lena is right. What if we stopped? What if we refused to play their game? Would they come for us, as she said? The sound of footsteps behind me breaks my thoughts. I turn around quickly, heart racing, but it's only Lena. She stands in the doorway, her posture rigid, her eyes shadowed. "You shouldn't be alone right now," she says, her voice low. I don't respond. I don't know what to say. Lena steps into the room, shutting the door behind her. "You're scared, I can tell," she says, her voice softer now. "But you have to understand, this is our life. This is what we do to survive." "I know," I whisper, though I'm not sure I do. Lena sighs and sits on the edge of the bed. She looks at me, her expression distant, as though she's somewhere far away. "I didn't want to tell you. I wanted to protect you from it, but it's too late now." I sit down beside her, my hands clenched in my lap. "Protect me from what, Lena?" She shakes her head slowly, a bitter smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "From the truth, from knowing what we really are." My heart skips a beat and I lean forward, my breath catching. "What do you mean?" Lena doesn't answer right away. She just looks at me, her eyes clouded with something I can't read. "The man," she says finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "The one we hunt. He's not just a stranger. He's part of the bargain. He's part of the trade." I swallow hard, trying to make sense of her words. "What do you mean?" I repeat, my voice shaking. Lena looks down, her hands fidgeting in her lap. "Dad didn't just start this to feed us. It's a way of keeping the curse at bay. That's why we don't talk about it. Why we don't question it. We have to give them what they want, and in return, they leave us alone." A cold shiver runs down my spine. "The curse?" She nods. "The woods. They're full of things, Lily. Things that were here long before us. Things that have been waiting." She swallows, her throat working. "Every year we make the offering. If we don't, they'll take more than just our food. They'll take everything." The room seems to close in around me, and for a moment I can't breathe. I want to run. I want to leave, but I know there's nowhere to go. The woods will always be there, just beyond the house, waiting for us to fail. I stand up abruptly, pacing across the room. "Why didn't you tell me this before? Why didn't anyone?" Lena doesn't answer immediately. She just watches me, her eyes sad, resigned. "You couldn't handle it before," she says finally. "You're still not ready." I stop in my tracks, spinning to face her. "But I am ready, Lena. I need to know what's going on. I need to understand what I'm a part of." She shakes her head slowly. "You don't understand. It's not about what you want or what you deserve. It's about what's been passed down to us, what we owe." "I don't want to owe anything," I say, the words escaping before I can stop them. Lena's eyes flash with something dark. "You don't get a choice, Lily. You never did. None of us did." The weight of her words crashes down on me, and I feel a coldness seep into my bones. I want to scream, to run, to escape everything. But I know it's too late for that. For the first time, I feel the full weight of the house around me. The house that's not just made of wood and stone, but of history and blood, of something ancient that's been feeding on us for generations. And now, I'm a part of it. I look at Lena, and for the first time, I see the toll this has taken on her. The way her eyes are hollowed, her movements slow, deliberate. I don't know if it's the curse that makes us do this. I don't know if it's the trade or the fear or something worse. But I do know one thing. I can't escape this. And soon I'll have to face what's waiting for me in the woods. The night feels colder than it should. I'm standing by the window again, my breath fogging up the glass as I stare out into the dark. The trees stretch endlessly, their branches like twisted fingers, reaching out, grasping for something just beyond my sight. I hear a noise behind me, footsteps, soft but deliberate. I turn to see Dad standing in the doorway, his face unreadable, his posture straight. "You're not sleeping?" he asks, his voice steady. But I can hear the warning in it. I don't respond immediately. Instead, I focus on the cold, on the oppressive silence of the house. "You know why we do it, right?" I finally say, my voice a little shakier than I meant it to be. Dad doesn't answer right away. He steps into the room, his eyes never leaving mine. "I do," I add, the words tumbling out of me like they've been waiting to escape. "I understand the hunt, and I understand the curse. But that doesn't mean I have to like it." For a moment he just watches me, his expression hardening, as though he's trying to decide if I'm worth the truth. Finally he speaks. "It's not about liking it, Lily. It's about survival. You don't understand what's out there, what's waiting, but I do. I've seen it, I've felt it." I take a step back, my heart pounding. "What do you mean?" Dad's eyes darken, and for the first time I see a flicker of something primal in them. "We made a deal a long time ago, Lily. A deal to keep the woods from claiming us. We pay the price, and in return we get to live." "A deal?" I repeat, my voice barely a whisper. He nods. "A long time ago, before any of us were born, our family was cursed, not just by the land, but by the things that lived in it. And when the first of our ancestors came to this house, they made a deal. The hunt, it was the price for protection. If we don't give it every year, if we don't feed them..." He trails off, his gaze turning distant, as though the memories are too much for him to bear. "Feed them?" I ask, my stomach twisting. He looks at me again, his face filled with a deep, quiet grief. "Yes, we feed them. The things in the woods, the ones who were here first, the ones who've been waiting." I feel the blood drain from my face. "You mean them? The people?" Dad doesn't answer. Instead, he turns away, walking to the door. "Dad!" I call out, my voice trembling. He stops, his back to me. "It's not about what you want, Lily. It's about what we owe. You have to understand that." I open my mouth to speak, but the words catch in my throat. In the silence that follows, I hear the rustle of something from outside, a sound that chills me to my bones. Something is out there, watching, waiting. "Lily," Dad says without turning around, "you don't have to like it. You just have to do it. It's the only way we survive." He leaves without another word, the door creaking shut behind him. I stand there for a moment, my mind racing. Everything I thought I knew, everything I believed is shattered. This house, this family, it's all built on lies. And the truth? The truth is something darker, something I can never escape. I try to steady my breath, but my chest tightens with a fear I've never known. I glance over at the window again, my eyes drawn to the forest beyond. The trees seem to watch me now, the shadows deeper than before. I know what's waiting. I know what will come for me if I refuse. I don't know how long I stand there, just staring, But the noise from outside grows louder, closer. A branch snaps. The ground shifts beneath me. Something is moving through the woods. Something that knows me. Something that has always known me. I turn away from the window, my heart hammering in my chest, but I don't run. I can't. The door to my room creaks open slowly and Lena steps in. She's holding something in her hand, a long silver knife that gleams in the dim light. "We're leaving," she says quietly, her voice strangely calm. "It's time for you to understand, Lily. The hunt, it's not just for them." I don't know what she means, but before I can ask, she steps forward, her hand gripping my wrist. "You've known all along," she whispers, her breath warm against my ear. "You've always known. And now, you'll be part of it too." The woods are waiting. I can hear them. I know they're coming. I don't know what's worse, the thing that waits for me out there or the thing I've already become. But there's no escaping it now. Lena's grip on my wrist tightens, pulling me away from the window. Her touch is cold, not just from the chill in the air, but from something deeper, something that feels like it's been frozen in her for years. I glance at her face, searching for some sign of the girl I once knew, the sister who laughed with me and played in the woods. But all I see is the hardness of someone who's already accepted the truth. "Lena, what are you talking about?" My voice shakes as I try to pull away, but her hold is unyielding. "Don't fight it, Lily," she whispers, her eyes darker than I've ever seen them. "You're already part of the cycle. You always were." The words hang in the air between us, suffocating me. My mind races, grasping at the pieces that don't make sense, but I can't make them fit. I try to back away, but my feet feel rooted to the floor. "You're scaring me," I manage to say, my voice barely audible. She tilts her head slightly, studying me like I'm something she's trying to understand, something she's learned to live with. "You think the hunt is just about food, Lily? About keeping us alive? It's more than that. We feed them, we offer to them, and in return they let us live another year. They let us stay here." Her voice drops to a whisper, and for the first time I hear a trace of something like regret. But it's not just about survival. It's about what we are and what we were born to do. "What do you mean, what we are?" I feel the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. "What we were born to do." Lena's eyes flicker for a moment, and then she looks away, her gaze slipping to the floor. "They've been here long before we were, Lily, and they'll be here long after we're gone. This house, this land, it's part of them. The forest, the trees, the earth, it all belongs to them. We don't just survive here, we belong here. This is where we're meant to be." The words claw at my chest, squeezing the air out of me. I take a step back, trying to make sense of what she's saying, but the more I think about it, the less it adds up. How could I have been born into something like this? How could I have been raised in a place like this and never known? Suddenly I hear it, the sound I've been dreading for years, a low, guttural growl that rises from deep within the forest. It's a sound I've heard in my dreams, in the moments when I couldn't sleep, when I was too scared to even move. And now it's real. It's out there. Lena doesn't flinch. She just closes her eyes for a moment, as though listening to the same thing I hear. "They're coming," she says, her voice distant. "You knew it would happen, we all did." The sound grows louder, and I feel the walls of the house tremble slightly beneath it. My heart is pounding in my chest, each beat like a drum that echoes through the stillness of the room. I look at Lena, my breath shallow and quick. "We can still run," I say, though I don't believe the words. "We can still leave, we can go—" "No," she cuts me off, her voice sharp. "We can't run, Lily, it's too late for that. The woods know us, they've always known us. We can't escape what we are." I open my mouth to argue, to scream, but the sound outside grows louder, closer. The growl is joined by something else now, a thumping, heavy footsteps, as if something is moving through the woods with the weight of something ancient and vast. "They're here," Lena says, her voice suddenly cold. "And now it's your turn." "My turn?" My voice is a whisper, barely a breath. "What do you mean?" Lena steps closer, her face inches from mine, her eyes filled with something I can't quite place, fear maybe, or maybe something darker. "You're part of it, Lily. You always were. You've always been meant to feed them just like the rest of us. It's what we do." It's what you'll do too. I stagger backward, my mind spinning. No, I'm not like you. I didn't ask for this. She watches me quietly as though waiting for me to understand. You don't get to decide that anymore. Her eyes flicker toward the door, where the sound from outside is now deafening. They're hungry, Lily, and we've all been feeding them for as long as we've lived here. If you refuse, if you walk away, you know what will happen. They'll take it from you, and I'll have to take it from you too. I feel my chest tighten, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The weight of her words settles in like a stone sinking in my gut. If I refuse. The truth is clear now, sharper than the knife Lena still holds loosely in her hand. The choice has always been mine, but I never knew it until now. I take a deep breath, my mind racing with fear, with a sickening understanding of what has been waiting for me all along. I know what she's asking me to do. I know what I have to do. And in that moment I realize there is no escaping the curse of the woods. There is no escaping them. With the sound of the forest outside closing in, I step toward Lena. I can hear the scraping of claws against the wood of the house, the pounding of something heavy against the earth. I raise my eyes to hers. I'll do it, I say, and the words taste like ash in my mouth. Lena nods, a slow, almost imperceptible movement. Good. The door creaks open and together we step into the night. The night air is suffocating. It presses in from all sides, thick with the scent of earth and decay, of things long buried. My feet crunch through the leaves, each step echoing in the silence as though the forest itself is listening. The sound of Lena's steps behind me is soft, deliberate, but there's something unsettling about the way the ground beneath us shifts, as if it's moving with its own intentions. The growls are closer now, surrounding us, filling the air with a raw, primal tension. The woods are alive with sound, but not the normal sounds I've heard all my life. The rustling of small animals, the chirp of insects, the wind through the trees. No, this is something else. It's the sound of a presence that has always been here, watching, waiting. It feels older than the trees themselves. I glance over my shoulder at Lena, but she's not looking at me. She's staring straight ahead, her expression unreadable, as though she's walking towards something inevitable, something that she's long since accepted. I open my mouth to ask her what's happening, but the words get stuck in my throat. I already know. We're almost there, Lena says softly, her voice cold but steady. I don't answer. There's nothing left to say. We push through the thick underbrush, the trees opening up to reveal a small clearing ahead. The moon is full tonight, casting a pale, ghostly light across the forest floor. And in the center of the clearing, something waits. The first thing I notice is the shape. Massive and hulking, its outline shifting unnaturally in the moonlight. It's not human, not even close. The creature is crouched low, its long limbs folded beneath it, its back hunched in a way that shouldn't be possible. Its eyes gleam red in the darkness, reflecting the moon like twin pools of blood. Its fur is matted and dark, clinging to its form like it's been there for centuries. And the smell, it's unbearable. A combination of rot and sulfur, like something ancient and decayed. I freeze, my breath catching in my throat. Lena steps forward, her hand still gripping my wrist, and pulls me into the clearing. The creature stirs, its massive head snapping up to face us, its eyes locking onto mine. There's no mistaking the hunger in its gaze. It knows who I am. It knows what I've been chosen for. This is it, Lena whispers, her voice eerily calm. This is what we've been preparing for, the offering. The creature rises slowly, its limbs folding into place with a sickening crack, as if it hasn't stood on two legs in centuries. It's taller than anything I've ever seen, towering over both of us. Its mouth opens, revealing rows of sharp, jagged teeth, dripping with saliva. My body freezes, the terror paralyzing me in place. I try to look away, but the creature's gaze is fixed on me, pulling me in, wrapping me in its dark presence. I can't move, can't breathe, can't think. Lena steps forward, pushing me gently toward the creature. It's time, Lily, they're hungry, and this is what we must give them. I feel the air grow colder, the ground beneath me shifting, pulling at my very soul. The creature opens its mouth wider, a low, guttural growl rumbling from deep within its chest. The sound vibrates through my bones, making my skin crawl. The hunger in its eyes is undeniable now. It's the kind of hunger that consumes everything in its path, the kind that leaves nothing but emptiness. I want to scream, to run, to tear myself away from this nightmare, but my body won't obey. I'm frozen, my feet rooted to the earth as if the forest itself is holding me in place. Lena's hand slides into her cloak, and when she pulls it out, she's holding something sharp and silver, a knife, its edge glinting in the moonlight. She holds it up to me, her eyes locked on mine. It's time for you to take your place in the family, Lily. You're the youngest. You've always been the one they wanted. I look down at the blade, its sharp edge reflecting the cold moonlight. My heart pounds in my chest, and I feel my legs threaten to give way beneath me. I open my mouth, but no sound comes out. Don't resist, Lena says softly, her voice almost tender. This is the way it's always been. This is what we are. I look at the creature again. Its eyes burn into me, its breath coming in heavy, ragged bursts. It's waiting for me to offer myself. The air grows colder still, and I feel the weight of the forest pressing in on me, pushing me toward the thing in the clearing. The hunger, the expectation. It's all too much. I can't fight it. I can't escape it. Lena's fingers tighten around the hilt of the knife, and with a soft, almost sad smile, she steps back, leaving me alone in the clearing with the creature. I take a trembling step forward, the weight of my decision crushing me. There's no going back from this. There is no escape from the pact my family has made. The creature's eyes gleam with anticipation, its mouth opening wide as it awaits its offering. And then, with the blade in my trembling hand, I take another step forward. The night feels as if it's closing in on me. The forest, once a place I thought I understood, now feels like a trap. The trees towering above me like silent witnesses to the unfolding horror. My heart is a drum in my chest, each beat loud and heavy, but the noise is drowned out by the low growl of the creature before me, the rustling of the leaves beneath its massive form, and the quiet, terrible weight of the moment. The creature watches me with unblinking eyes, its jagged teeth glistening in the moonlight. Its breath is ragged, the air around us thick with its hunger. The shadows stretch long across the clearing, reaching for me as if the forest itself wants to consume me. I raise the blade, my hand shaking uncontrollably, but something inside me is pushing me forward. This is what I was born for. This is the family's legacy, the hunt, the offering, the sacrifice. The words that Lena spoke echo in my mind. You're the youngest. You've always been the one they wanted. I don't know if it's the cold grip of the forest, the weight of my family's expectations, or something deeper inside me, but the terror in my chest starts to shift. It becomes something else, something darker. A sickening pull toward the creature, a compulsion to end it. Lena watches from the edge of the clearing, her eyes wide and expectant, her face set like stone. There's no sympathy in her gaze, no hesitation. She knows what must happen. This is the way it's always been. I can feel the pull of the creature now, as though it's tugging at my very soul, drawing me closer to it. Its eyes are locked on mine, and I feel as though it knows me better than I know myself. It knows what I'm capable of, what I've always been capable of, deep down. The blade feels heavier with every step I take, and as I approach the creature, I wonder if I can still turn back. But I know that I can't. The air is too thick with the scent of decay and power, the ground beneath my feet too soft, too wrong. There's no escape from this. When I'm close enough to reach it, the creature crouches, its head dipping low as if inviting me to do what's expected. It's ready, it's waiting for its offering. I glance at Lena one last time, and her eyes are wide, waiting for me to make the final choice. You're the one they wanted, her words resound in my head. I can't stop myself. I know what I have to do. There's no place left to hide. I raise the blade, the steel gleaming with the reflection of the moonlight, and I bring it down. The creature's eyes flare with something almost human, a recognition, a sense of satisfaction, maybe even gratitude. But as the knife strikes its skin, there's a sound that makes my blood freeze. It's not a cut, not a wound. The blade doesn't sink into the creature's flesh the way I expected. Instead, it stops, almost as if it hit a wall. The creature grunts, but it doesn't recoil. It doesn't fight back. I stare in disbelief at the blade, now lodged against the creature's fur, unable to penetrate. A horrible realization hits me all at once. It wasn't meant to be an offering. It was meant to be the one I was offering to. The creature doesn't flinch, but something inside me shifts, like the ground beneath me is suddenly unstable. The world tilts, and for a split second I hear voices, soft whispers, like the wind itself speaking a language I can't understand. The earth beneath my feet begins to tremble, the roots of the trees shifting, writhing beneath the soil. And then the ground gives way. I stumble forward, the blade slipping from my hand as the forest seems to come alive, wrapping around me, pulling me down into the earth. The air is thick with the sound of shifting roots, the shrieking of the trees, and the growl of the creature now rising behind me. I can't breathe. I can't move. My body is paralyzed, trapped in the earth, as if the forest itself has decided it no longer needs me. And then, through the chaos, I hear Lena's voice, distant but clear. "It's too late, Lily. You can't fight what you are." I scream, but the sound is lost, swallowed by the thick, suffocating air. My eyes burn as the world spins around me and the creature's growl fills the space like a physical force. It's not hungry anymore. It's not waiting. It's taking. The last thing I feel before everything goes black is the weight of the earth above me, the hands of the forest wrapping around me like a dark embrace. And I know, in that moment, that there is no escaping this place. There is no escaping them. This is what we were born for. This is what we've always been meant to do. And now, we are part of the woods, part of the hunt. Thank you for joining me tonight at Nightmare Theatre. I hope you all enjoy your Thanksgiving. My name is Arthur Pembroke, and I'll see you again tomorrow night.